Welcome back to Box 2. Myself, Jamie Jones-Buchanan, in partnership with Best Western Hotels. GB want you to know they're still rolling out the year of the free breakfast in 2025. For more details, visit bestwestern.co.uk/free breakfast. Now, at Box 2, I'm always talking about the very special guests that we've got on the show, and today is no different. We have got the chair of the Leeds Teaching Hospitals NHS Trust, Dame Linda Pollard, who is a pioneer, an entrepreneur, a strategist, a leader who's revitalised the trust here in Leeds through partnerships, collaboration, cross-pollinations, in a way that's really shifted the dial here in this wonderful city. Dame Linda, it's an honour to have you here. I've done a fair bit of reading and some research, and your professional journey is fascinating to me. We'll get into that, hopefully. But my first question, somewhat selfish, I guess, is this journey that you've walked from a young age, both parallel with the private sector and the public sector, has brought, from what I can see, a lot of joy, a lot of success, a lot of dials shifted. How have you managed to do that? Because having retired 5 years ago, being out on what I call a safari, seeing the way different sectors communicate, that for me has been a challenging, because they all speak a different language, move at a different speed, and measure things in different ways. How have you dealt with it?
First of all, good to meet you, Jamie, and thanks for inviting me here. I see this as a real opportunity because I think our audiences are the same, but we can get to talk about that as we go on. And thank you for the compliment. It has been a journey, and life has its challenges. So I think to answer your question to start with, where did I start? At cheeky age of 24, writing your own business plan to start your own business is a slightly more optimistic than most people would do. And it all stemmed from the fact I was working in London and was offered a job back in the north. I was ready to come home. And it fell through. Last minute, they decided not to go for that expansion that they'd originally planned. And so I decided, when I stood back thinking I could do this anyway, and finished up in competition to the original people that were going to employ me. And I can so remember standing, it took me overseas a lot, standing in a queue, checking in Paris to a big conference, and that individual was about 3 in front of me, turned and saw me and said, that was probably one of the biggest mistakes I ever made in my entire life. I did not bankrupt that company, by the way. We worked, going back to partnerships, we finished up actually working together on various other things. And the whole of my career kind of started from that point. You always have to have people that you respect when you're young, particularly, that you aspire to be or that you have admiration for. In my case, it was my grandfather, very much so, in an era where women weren't necessarily expected to work or go into business, definitely not. And have I been, for a long, long time, many, many years, the only woman in the room? Yes. But you have to build confidence in yourself that what you believe in, what you want to achieve, and a driven ambition is the right one. It has the right values attached to it. And I think that's one of the reasons I'm sat here today talking to you and the values of this foundation. Because once you start to build your teams, and I think you probably know more about teamwork than a lot of people would, you attract the right people, you employ the right people. It doesn't always work. You'll make mistakes. People, industries do. You start to build something that is meaningful and then that has the right values. And I hate to say it, but success then breeds success because you gain respect you earn, and you have to earn it. And that means get your sleeves rolled up. Very often put your money where your mouth is. And I don't mean literally money, but that can mean effort. If we're going to do that, are you going to be part of that? Are you going to lead it? Yes. And that is a bit of risk-taking, calculated risk, partnership risks. But people have to believe that when sometimes the chips go down, but you're still there and you're still supporting them. And the aim of what you set off to do is not every day's Christmas Day, that you then say, we can get over this. That has been the thread to the question you asked. whether it's been private or public sector, because I believe in both, and both can work together, and third sector and charity sector.
Brilliant. So if I'm understanding you right there's an element of resilience, turning up and delivering as a value of validating your worth, rolling your sleeves up, for want of a better phrase.
Very much so.
The two, and I'm not going to segue too far, but I am curious. One measures things perhaps in social value, the other in pounds and pence, private. How do you evidence movement in the public sector when it is around emotion, when it is around social value rather than a metric?
It always comes back to the same thing, Jamie. It's always about people. People deliver. People deliver on everything. You can have every strategy in the world with the best brains in the world devising that strategy. And no matter how clever we're going to be with AI in the future, people will still have to be the deliverers. And if you're in a people industry, which most industries, and certainly your industry and my industries have been, then people will deliver. And money is essential. Financing whatever project or development it is, it's the wiring that keeps it together. But you won't get finance unless you've got the right people who are able to manage the people. Because at the end of the day, it will be the people that deliver the finance. And I've always believed in that. You have to take one or two risks with people and be prepared for people to occasionally make a mistake. But you support them. You give them the extra tools that they need to develop them or whatever. Ours is a big organisation at Leeds Teaching Hospitals. You know, it's 22,000 people.
Wow.
And nearly 2 billion turnover. And it's across a lot of sites across Leeds. That's a huge responsibility, but it equates to a FTSE 100 company. So if you think, well, I'm running a FTSE 100 company, what do I need to do that brings private sector, not always values, but certainly ways of running a business that people in the health service would understand?
Yep.
If I went out and started talking the world of finance to them every time, quite frankly, apart from it being a turn on off to both them and me, we'd lose them. So you have to make it understand what it is that's going to affect their day job. By enabling me, will enable them. And where's the value? Where's the real value? And in health particularly, people do not get out of bed, I'm not generalising, I was one or two, to do a bad job because they care. That's what they choose to go into health for very often, or mostly. So you have to support them and you have to lead from the front and they have to believe in you. But equally, a lot more nowadays, particularly public sector, you've got to manage the politics of what goes on, whether that's small p or big P. And we've had lots of change of administrations and, you know, the people that we are answerable to. But coming back to trying to get people to work together, finance is absolutely essential. It's like the wiring between us all. But if I'm in a room with a charity or third sectors and we're all trying to deliver for Leeds in that same way, whatever it is, then we have to say, well, we have a small pot over here. We might have a slightly bigger pot. But then you start to look out to say, well, OK, where does private sector come in this? You know, are we trying to provide better health through better housing, through better education, through inward investment? So we're all really in it, aren't we?
Yes.
So what's not to like?
Yeah.
But you've got to lead from the front, and then people, financiers particularly, have to have confidence that you will deliver. You will deliver for whatever private sector that is. And that's where Leeds has been successful. We are absolutely brilliant. Team Leeds, as we call ourselves. The local authority, the universities, ourselves, we've got the combined authority around the table now. We're all in it together. We've been in it together for 7 years and we have moved the dial, for instance, on innovation and research in Leeds. We are absolutely on Medtech, world leading.
Love it. So you're talking about one Leeds there, a unity. We talk about one team, Team Rhinos. and we follow the big city ambition as well, try and speak the same language so that when we're in those rooms, around the round tables and the forums, talking about what we can add as a sporting institution to the big pot, what I refer to as the stone soup. We're on the same page. And when I drive down the M621 there and I see the landscape of Leeds opening up, it takes my breath away, because to me it's home. There's a multitude of cranes. There must be 20 odd now in there. And you think this is a thriving city. Yes. And I wanted to ask you, health seems to keep popping up quite often in innovation and progress. And we seem to be leading the country in many aspects. Is health a core part of the Leeds identity? Are we doing it better than most?
We certainly are, because of the partnerships again. And we are addressing those things that we've talked about now for a number of years that are now really political hot potatoes. And the 10-year plan, of which I've been personally heavily involved in, fortunately being asked to be part of the people piece. Well, I think people is across my forehead actually stamped in there. I was asked to look at that by the government, and it was a real privilege to be able to do that. The 10-year plan's out, but if you look at that and the headlines that are coming out of that, we've actually had a focus on that in Leeds for a number of years. So it's nothing new to us. But, we've got to address some of the really social issues that address health. You at Rhinos and Headingley Per Se, and the foundation definitely, because our values are so intertwined. I wish I'd read your document a few years ago, because I'd have had you around the table. You'd have been actually a partner at the table, and you will be from here on in. So careful what you wish for, Jamie and team, because our values are the same. Because if we look at what creates bad health in the first place, not always, because obviously some of that is genetic and other things that you have to think about. But the deprivation that we've got in Leeds is huge. Yep. And we forget that at our peril. We absolutely do. Because we have to address the social issues that create that. But if we start younger, and you are certainly doing that here, which is terrific. And we are doing it through our schools programme and our academy work, the Social Care, Health and Social Care Academy, which is basically getting people much younger, or even mid-career, and taking them through a different plan. But if we do it together, then hopefully less people will come through the door. And this is some longer term planning as well. You have to deal with the immediate. But if we look at somebody who is probably prone to, whether it's obesity, whether it's diabetes, whether it's genetic conditions or mental health issues, we've got loneliness as another real issue, particularly with young men. And we have to address it, but we can address it earlier together. And hopefully they don't come through the door of our place then, or any of the places, because there are several, having had a trauma, and then they're walking through A&E, and then multitudinous issues appear from there, because health conditions that we could have dealt with earlier as a team, back to Team Leeds, then that's the way to address tomorrow's health situations. It is in the 10-year plan. There's lots of things there, prevention rather than cure. Up for that. Let's find it early. We're talking about from hospital to community. Why wouldn't you? We're looking at diagnostics as a huge big one. Yep. We don't want streaming people coming through the hospital to have a diagnosis that may be negative, by the way. But guys particularly, can you just think about your prostate a little bit sooner before it gets serious? Get those health checks. If you've got worries, frustrations, depression, come on. We're there to help you. And it might not be the NHS, it might be a third party piece. It might be get on the pitch with us. It can be a whole group of people. But we can help the people of Leeds. And I think your supporters will come outside of Leeds as well. So I'm encouraging Health Per Se is to say, let's look at those things that are in the 10-year plan. A 10-year plan, what does it mean? It can be pretty boring, can't it? Let's be honest. You've got government flacking off all over the place. We all pick the media up, don't we, and think, oh no, it's another minister talking about goodness knows what. We can make it real here in Leeds, Jamie. We can. You're making it real. I've just walked past young people on your pitch having a kickabout and doing fantastic. But we need more, don't we?
Yep.
to actually think about those health issues that are actually in your foundation. They're in ours. These are the standards by which we run. Why wouldn't you come together? But it's going to take leadership. You're up for it. I can tell from just looking at you. You're up for it. I'm up for it. I know other people in the city that are up for it. We're already doing it. So just let's keep building on what we've created.
Love it. If you'll teach me and show me which direction to point my enthusiasm at, I'll keep marching through that 10-year plan, and perhaps in 2035 we'll reflect on some of the progress made. I'm just thinking semantics there. I was fortunate to interview Sir Chris Hoy last week, and he talked about exactly the same. Men of around 45, whilst you might think, oh, I'll wait till I'm 50, get the prostate checked out, because he left it late and he's living inspiringly with terminal cancer right now. He looks brand new. He's an inspiring human being. So some of those messages then, how can sport be a platform to communicate some of the important messages that you're keen to deliver within the context of that 10-year plan and some of the initiatives that the government is trying to push?
Again, partnerships always comes back to people, doesn't it? That's how we started. Those partnerships, you have a way into people through your gates, through your outreach that you're doing, through the schools programmes, through everything else, the community programmes and various others, a whole list of them that I've read today. We do, the local authority does. All the providers in these, whether the mental health providers or the community providers, we all have a reach into people. And we just have to say, don't leave it. Schools have a massive part to play in this, and education have. Don't leave it. Just get your checkups. And I will come up. I'm so in admiration of Hoyle, by the way, enormous, because he's gone out there and been prepared to say it. But unfortunately, the average male does not think like that. There are more people dying of prostate cancer now than breast cancer.
Wow.
Now, it used to be the other way around, but we screen heavily on breast cancer and we don't think about it, do we? Unfortunately, you guys, you tend to leave it too late, by which time, as you discussed in your last podcast, unfortunately then, the worst happens. Now, I'm not suggesting for one moment that might have not been the outcome, but if you don't do your testing early, your diagnostics early, and diagnostics comes to a bit of it, don't be frightened. Nobody's going to cut your head off. A diagnostic is just a test. Just a test. It's easy. It might be a blood test. It might be an X-ray. It might be a scan. It might be an MRI. It doesn't matter. It's a tiny thing to just do, to think about, to stop the worst happening further down.
Yeah.
And, you'd be doing yourself a favour, you would certainly be doing your family a favour, and you'd actually get peace of mind. So what's not to like? And the world then is open to you to do lots of other wonderful things. Just do it. Do it.
Absolutely. You mentioned partnerships there and encouraging, sending those messaging. Just a couple of things there. Leeds Foundation Motivate programme in conjunction with some of the health initiatives there, with the rheumatoid arthritis, providing a 12-week opportunity to come together as a small community to play games and be really active. Fighting Parkinson's is another gym there at Morley, working with the neurological physiotherapist there, supporting mobility, gaining confidence in daily activities. I think it's fascinating now that I'm starting to see this almost social prescribing as a means to get people involved with physical activity, because we know all the health benefits, whether it be park runs or local leisure centres giving cheaper access to their facilities to get people moving. Do you see that being a driver, and does that start at a young age with school children? I know we're always talking about measurements with maths, English, science, but we do need to be a little bit more old school and get people active again.
Yeah, it was pretty mandatory when I was at school. Unfortunately, it's not now, is it? Which, that can't be a great idea, can it? But I mean, even beyond, sport, because not everybody's interested in sport. You can, by introducing them at an early age, try and hopefully do that. I certainly did it with my children, because particularly the boys were, bursting with energy. And if you don't manage it, then it can go the opposite way, can't it?
Yeah.
So, they get into things that they probably shouldn't be doing, or too much on their phone or a tablet or whatever. However, having said that, there are also other parts of the population who physically think that they shouldn't be doing things. You should. there's unquestionably, I'm a fanatical gardener. I drive everybody mad. I've just opened yesterday with the Royal Horticultural Society, the new wellbeing garden, which is on the St James site for staff. The staff came out and did the planting yesterday. It's quite a big garden, and the RHS have paid for this, which has been amazing partnership. Back to that again. Where's pots of money to do things when you haven't got any? But the thing is, they were all ages. They were all ages there. So for me, the work the exercise I do in my garden, my goodness, I feel like 990 some days when I've finished. But a hot bath and a good sleep, and I'm back in the game. You have to push yourself a little bit, obviously, particularly as you get older. But just walking, if you've got a dog, no excuse. Get out with the dog. But if you haven't got a dog, go join. People will then socially, back to mental health issues, people will then talk to you, engage with you, encourage the young ones, those that are fitter, to join, find something that you're all got something in common, and just do it. I've never let age, I don't talk about age because I think it's all in the mind. Why would I at my age anyway? But the thing is, people think, oh, I'm getting older. What does it mean? In what way are you getting older? Physically? Why? Ask yourself that. Or is it that you should just read more and stimulate your brain more if you're feeling depressed, lonely, back to that kind of thing. Or people who do spend a lot of time, and there are a lot of people who spend a lot of time in their day jobs on their own, then you must not go home on your own. You've got to then join a club. Can't think of anywhere better than to come in here and help with the young ones, volunteers. We all rely heavily on volunteers. I mean, we at the hospital, through our charity that we have at the hospital, my goodness, the whole place would collapse if we didn't have those volunteers. They are amazingly wonderful people. But it gives them a purpose in life, and they're of varied ages as well. People who will sit with people who are terminally ill. But they've got that empathy that they suddenly realise, I can share these things that I've gone through with you, talk to me. Or even just young people who come in to talk to young people. We've got a wonderful place on the Leeds General Infirmary site, because our children's hospital, which we haven't got the build yet, but we'll get it. And I'll come back to that maybe on another podcast, Jamie, because that's where I got in the armour. We're still pushing, by the way, people of Leeds, we are still pushing on that. We will get a new hospital, don't worry. But when you start talking to the young people that come in through the door as maybe babies, they're born with some kind of difficulty. One of the beauties of the system we have at Leeds is that they go through from being literally born, and they can go right through to adulthood. They do not have to change hospitals in Leeds, unlike many other parts of the country where they start off as children and have to move to an adult facility. That doesn't happen here. So we created, with charity help, a place called Place to Be. Maybe you should do a podcast from there sometime with these kids.
Love to.
They are wonderful. They are wonderful because they're the adolescent kind of group. So they've got computer stations, they've got big screens, they can, it's their place. It's their place. In fact, she's now, she's patron of the Children's Hospital. She was, at the time she visited, Countess of Wessex. She's now the Duchess of Edinburgh. She had her last meeting, a visit in the Place to Be, and met those patients. But it's amazing when you start talking to them where they think that perhaps their illness is a handicap in life. No, because we've got young people, volunteers, or people coming from outside to say they can be brilliant at maths. Well, we develop it then. Okay. Games, they might be brilliant at, games. They spend a lot of time doing it. So, but then you should not let your health dictate your life, because with help from us and other agencies, as Team Leeds again, you're part of the agency now. I'm sorry to say, I've just co-opted you. We can help these people, and we can be that healthy city that we all aim to be. But do you know, even more so, our ambition should be, if we can, we are doing this in Leeds, and there's a lot of initiatives coming out of Leeds that then roll out. But if we can show what we can do, going back to that 10-year health plan that is in there deliberately, delivery's not in there,
Right.
but the high-level ambition is in there. Let's take that and say, we're up for that. Well, we are. We've already proved it. But we can do so much more that when this city does it, other cities can emulate. Other cities are doing things, but they haven't got quite that team leads that we have, that we've developed alongside particularly Tom Reardon, the ex-CEO of the local authority. It's now Ed, brilliant, same values, rolling with it. The local authority own it, the combined authority own it. Those private sector people that are partners at the table, they own it. They want to build. Yes, they want to make money. Well, they make money. I don't have a problem with private sector making money. I wanted to make money when I was private sector. But why are we doing it? And are we doing it in the right place? So we might have to persuade them, no, you don't need to be over there. Actually, what you need to be is a bit closer to the hospital, a bit closer to the communities that we're talking about. Can we do things differently? And with leadership, it always comes back to that. You can persuade other sectors to join you. I've proved it. Delivery is in there.
Like it. That messianic figure I keep talking about, the leader around which everything revolves. So that, I don't know, the picture of the M621, I always think about the Emerald City and the narrative of the Wizard of Oz. Behind the veil is a message, a narrative that gives an identity out, and whether you're Dorothy or the Scarecrow or the Lion, you're going down there for a need. They've all got different needs. Actually, they find that the journey is what finds their wants. But there's always this message, the people behind the veil. You've mentioned a few there, Ed Whiting, maybe Tracy Brabin, the local authority, bringing those individuals together. If I understood you right, I love the bit where you're talking about young people not allowing a disability or a health issue stop you from finding your gift, Pablo Picasso, and then giving it away. That's where you find meaning, purpose, and belonging. And I guess I've seen a lot of that. Within the city of Leeds then, is the question for me. There's some stats there. And we talked about people and the amount of people that the Leeds NHS see on a yearly basis. 1.8 million people, I think, that fills Headingley AMT Stadium 91 times, right? We'd just like to get 16,000 13 times. It'd be awesome. That's a lot of people. But there's some amazing facts here. For example, 117,000 people have taken part in nearly 1,500 active research projects, some of which, I'll give you a couple of examples, to remove a brain tumour through an eye socket, which is mind-blowing, and I'll ask you a little bit about the detail of that. And then the UK's first ever liver transplant for advanced bowel cancer. So there's innovation going on, there's new things. What frustrates me about Leeds is whether it be John Smeaton and the guy who coined the phrase civil engineering, or the first moving pictures in Leeds. We don't talk about it. We don't talk about it enough, and we're not bold enough. How do we tell this story and showcase some of the amazing work that's going on in the NHS?
Yeah. There's quite a lot of angles to research and innovation, and there's quite a success story for Leeds here. But let's do that, because I think that's important before we go on to how we shout about it, and we do shout about it a lot, believe me, because a lot of our people that work in LTHT don't just work in Leeds. I mean, they're working nationally, internationally, and our reputation internationally in certain specialties is world leading. And we must never forget that. And I'm so, so proud of the innovative things just a few that you've mentioned there. And I could go on and on and on. Robotics, we're one of the biggest robotics centres. And of course, you have an operation with the robot. It's not just a robot, the people around you, I assure you. Your recovery time is half. You go home. I'll give you an example. A 10-year-old that I unfortunately walked into having an op because they were showing me a new robot. I'll never forget that, because I'm not good in operating theatres, by the way. And the parents I saw afterwards, they were sitting in a room outside. And I said, I want to track this young man. He was having a liver problem. And I went to talk to the parents afterwards. And I said, I want to track him. I want somebody to feed me. I'm not just popping in here and then popping out. I want to know, is he okay? Because I was quite upset when I came out, because I identified with a child on an operating theatre as I would as a mum. And he was home within 48 hours. The usual recovery time pre that was 10 days in hospital. And so what's not to like about robots? So, but that and I've encouraged that, and I've really thrown a lot about it. But I want to come back to R&I. I came into the Trust 13 years ago, and I'd been chairing the University of Leeds for a number of years, where, of course, University of Leeds is a Russell Group, and that's based on research. So for the 7 years I was chairing there, we talked about research constantly, obviously, because your success as a university is based on your research programmes and what you're doing with various organisations worldwide, particularly. And I came into the Trust and I went through 4 years of minutes, and there wasn't one time any discussion, any agenda item on research or innovation. Well, innovation, forget that. And so I said, well, we're missing a trick here, because we have a lot of joint appointments with universities, plural, around the city. You know, we've got Beckett, Trinity, we've got the University of Leeds, quite clearly, and other universities as well that we're in partnership with, particularly across West Yorkshire, but even further with York, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm thinking, this can't be right. This cannot be right. So we started to look at our research programmes. We have grown that to be something that is totally outstanding. Now, when I say we, I am not using the royal we. I am using the we of the people that work within LTHT. Those amazing people that, even in their back bedrooms, were thinking, there's another way of doing this. With their colleagues, have we thought about doing something slightly differently? There weren't many silver linings to COVID. It was a fairly grim time for all of us, but particularly the NHS, obviously. But we were talking internally at that time about our new build, what we needed, our new children's hospital and our new adult hospital at the side. We knew that was not going to happen during COVID because nobody was moving. You know, everything came to a standstill. We had to concentrate on the pandemic. And that, of course, came and went over a 2-year period. So it was quite a destabilising period. But what the LGI site gave us was a site where we needed to demolish, and we'd already got into demolishing, ready for the build. And it released 5 hectares of land. The innovation partnership that I've chaired, again, with all those partners I described earlier, that was the opportunity to say, let's look at that 5 hectares during this period where we can all work remotely on this. We don't have to be physically on site. Get national interest to say, how can we build, starting with that 5 hectares, something around our R&I. And that's what we did. We threw everything into it. We created the innovation pop-up. That was an internal thing we did. That has blown my mind, its success. Because from that period to today, we now have huge, I think we're about 700, membership. People who are sharing ideas, whether they've thought about it as a team, whether they've heard something that internationally, but we could develop that by doing ABC, whether that's corporates that are now joining, other countries that are joining to come and say, well, we're trying to do that in wherever. They're all now coming to Leeds to say, well, hang on a minute. That has grown. So it started off with the pop-up, which is now going to pop down, because we've now got, thanks to the combined authority, who have taken what is now the old medical school, which was a listed building, which was a problem case because an old building is not fit for medical purposes anymore. And we've taken the people out of there by building a new pathology lab. That is going to be the new innovation centre. That's private sector building that, and we'll be running it with anchor tenants and some of our people, alongside Nexus, of course, very similar, but not quite, because it's Medtech we're doing. And that then, local authority went back and said, well, hang on a minute, because we've got 5 hectares, of which the medical school was the gateway, and we wanted that developing. Why don't we open up the whole site? We've now got, as part of the local authority strategy, the innovation arc for the city, which includes social housing, creating jobs, looking at education and training, alongside innovation and research. Jamie, why wouldn't you do it?
Absolutely. No, it's fascinating. There's a lot of jigsaw pieces in there that you've put together.
Precisely.
And I imagine, you mentioned COVID then, things that have never happened before happen all the time. So quite often things that manifest are not always planned. They're circumstantial, and innovative people who've got a growth mindset say, let's try something a bit different, which can be a challenge for a lot of people. And I'm listening to you there talking about pop-ups and new buildings during COVID, and you reminded me also of a new building that's going to be opening in autumn that was born out of the most adverse circumstance through a former teammate of mine, Rob Burrow, contracted MND. But thanks to the leadership, I suppose, of a guy that I call the greatest leader and cultural architect I've ever met in Kevin Sinfield, he puts on his boots, he starts running with his trainers on, and he encapsulates the hearts and minds of a nation through the BBC and the media. And what we've got now is that Rob Burrow Centre for MND, which is a new example of what I think you're talking about there. And I just wondered what your thoughts were with that, with the story and the moving emotion that brought about the charity fundraising and the building of that hospital, but then what we can look forward to seeing and progressing in the future.
Oh, Jamie, you've encapsulated everything that's wonderful about that, because that starts off, doesn't it, with an idea. That starts off with an individual who, for event of circumstance, and my goodness, I haven't words to describe the emotion or the respect that I have for both the individual concern that we're talking about, but then those around him who then picked up the baton and said, we can do more for the community than this, and then that go national. We've always had an M&D centre in Leeds. Sheffield has been the big research centre for many, many years, and it's something, obviously, we've wanted to develop alongside many, many, many other specialties, by the way, who crave for that kind of leadership that came out of that dreadful situation for both the individual and the family. But it took leadership, didn't it? You described it as that. And you're back to that again. We always come back to the same thing. That M&D centre is going to be amazing, absolutely amazing, as will be the new children's hospital in exactly the same way, and many other centres, hopefully, that will develop around various other different specialties. But the M&D centre, I can always remember when we first started talking about it, where have we got a site, where could we do this? What's going to be easy access for people? And we had the Seacroft site because the other sites are absolutely chocker and there's no capital monies in the NHS at the moment. It's dire. So we had to say, we're up for this. We'll give you the land because that was the land we had. But we're going to have to go out and we're going to have to fundraise like mad. Well, our charity, the Leeds Hospital Charity, got involved. And then, amazingly, everybody stepped up to the mark, didn't they? My goodness me. Yeah. The names you've just mentioned, the family, everybody. And we're very grateful because could we have gone out and created that amount of communication, of which they've been brilliant at. And I try to do that for everything else that goes on, as do a lot of my colleagues in their different specialties and the executive team and the non-exec team. We're all on different platforms. I shout very loudly in London, believe me. I can be quite irritating at times, apparently. No surprise there. But in this particular case, it's mind-blowing as to what they've done. It's going to be open later this year. I was only up there week before last. And it's just so exciting. And the benefits that are going to be received by so many people there. And it's going to have that research piece. I'm sorry to bring it back to that, but this is so important that we try to stop this in the first place. We're going to have the Genomics Centre, the new lab is going to be in Leeds. It's in Leeds. And the extension of genomics generally, that aligns to so many different kind of unfortunate illnesses that occur. But the MND Centre is just something that absolutely shows everything that we've talked about here, Jamie, in this last hour. That through leadership and determination, having the right values, getting the right people to listen, to want to take whatever it is forward, you can do it. From a standing start, which it was, you can achieve it. But look, you're involved, we're involved. Hundreds of people got behind it brilliantly, unbelievably brilliantly. You had a start here with the rhinos, which, we're all proud of you. Obviously, my boys did rugby. We talked about it on the way in. Rhinos were their heroes, and those are the people that, again, back to the younger generation, relate to. They'd never even heard of MND. Yeah. Everybody knows about MND now, but equally, they need to know about other kind of areas that we need to specialise in. We can do that in Leeds. We're really good at a lot.
It's fascinating listening to you, and you've got a rare mind for cross-pollinating ideas and having that open growth mindset. I'm just listening to you talking about the benefits of robotics, AI and innovation. And I wonder, and back this away if because none of us can see the future, but how much of those, because I went to Citran, Sheffield, and they talked about, listen, I'm no medical expert, but Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, MND, neurological conditions. You might, through researching one, find progress in others. And I wondered how much progress or how much of the solution will lie in the tech industry as opposed to medical industries. We'll try to cure a biological problem with a biological solution. But do you think in the future there might be a technological solution to some of these biological problems?
You heard me use the word Medtech a while ago. We are based in Leeds, really emphasising the Medtech world. That's our specialty. That's what we're really good at. That's where our minds are. Yes, there is that. The Golden Triangle of the South has been based around Oxford, Cambridge and London. That is pharma-led. That and has had huge support, done amazing things with pharma, with masses of money from pharma companies to create that wonderful work that's gone worldwide. We can do that from Leeds on Medtech. The future is absolutely ours, but we have to get back to that again. I keep going around full circle. How do we pay for that to happen? We pay for it because we have to get other partners involved, whether that's private sector. That's the commerciality of where you bring, I think you started off with this actually when we sat down, that we have to get together the private sector, the public sector. This is not about privatising the NHS. This is about looking at our future and what we are going to need that the public purse cannot pay for. Yep. In the same way as the Golden Triangle in the South use pharma, we are going to use other private sector industries and inward investment that will bring West Yorkshire, because we can't just do it in Leeds. West Yorkshire can crack a lot of it together. Well, we will. It's not we can't. We will, because we've got the drive, we've got the ambition, we've got the talent, we've got the skills. We just need the inward investment, which will bring us right back to we will create jobs, we will create better education, and therefore we will create stopping the health issues and enabling people to live better lives.
You've got me. I'm ready to follow. So I'll finish off with just sort of asking the question then, what can I do? What can we do as a sporting institution? What do we need to be mindful of? And I'll just start with duplication. All right, quite often I go out and I see lots of charities doing some amazing things in Leeds. And I think, well, I've just come from a charity doing something very similar. And if you collaborated, you'd get probably
bigger bang.
A much bigger bang. So, for example, some of the projects, mental health, we've got the Leeds Rhinos Foundation's got an offload programme, men's mental health. I'm going to speak quite soon at the Man Network as a guest of yours. We've got the Inspiring Futures, which is encouraging young people to think about who and what they can become rather than getting involved in gangs and perhaps knife crime. There's a wonderful guy in Leeds who's recoined the phrase, or using an acronym for gang as guiding a new generation. Lou Tell James there, phenomenal work. you've got the Navigators program where young people are coming into hospital as a result of violent crime and all kinds of traumatic industries. And then the veterans work, we've got a veterans cafe, you're working with veterans and supporting those who served the community. How can we get all this on the table, understand what we're all doing, which is ultimately, if I understand that right, trying to do the same thing, different nuances, but how can we prevent duplication?
Don't you think you've just said it?
Perhaps, maybe. Well, but
you have.
Yeah.
I'll challenge you because
Okay,
you have.
love it. Yes.
You've got a podcast that's reaching how many people? Roughly.
At the minute, I'm just looking behind me at some of the guys. There might be 2,000 people.
Yeah. We've got a platform the way we get communication out to 21,000 people who work in the trust.
Yeah.
We do that every week. We send out everything, social media. We've got access to immediate what we call Start the Week, which everybody can pick into. And all the agencies around Leeds that deliver health have the same thing.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you join? I know, having read your foundation document, what you're up to, you have no way of escaping me in future or the team, because that's the way that we crack everything, because we bring ourselves together to say, MND Centre Classic, let's get together, let's actually have one focus. Don't let's try and kill the world all in one go. Let's take this project, maybe 3 projects, really together, get into it. Where does it start? Usually with young people, very often.
Yeah.
Not always, but very often. What do we do? What do we need to do with that? Is it the education system? Is it youth justice system? Is it local authority? Is it the health system? Is it the sports, the recreation? Is it third sector? The Health and Wellbeing Board that runs out of Leeds is one of the best in the country. I've co-chaired it with the local authority. Unusually, that is very unusual. With 40 people in the room, that's where you start to talk to each other to say, why are you doing that over there when they're doing it over here? Why don't we get together and do that? And why have we got that problem? We take problems. The last problem was mental health. The one before that was primary care and access into primary care. So you solve a problem by getting together and saying, well, my issues are X. And it might be money. So you start to look around to say, well, is there a charity around that could help that? Or is it private sector? Is it some corporate that wants a headline? You've got them. You started opening up with your sponsorship. I'm always on about people supporting, because that's how you do it. Nothing better to get the private sector involved, because interestingly, once they do get involved and they start to see results, people identify with it, there's a win-win there.
Yes.
So why wouldn't you do it? But coming back to, we've just got to communicate better as to what we're all doing. I mean, I didn't know till I read your document coming here what the foundation focused on. I'd had conversations outside, and very interestingly, very much about diagnostics outside and how we could get it nearer into communities, which I'm passionate about at the minute. And from that led me into rhinos, led me into reading your document. Why didn't I know your values are exactly the same ones as the ones that we're working to? And many others, by the way, I could quote. So we just need to understand, where are those agencies about that we can say, I thought, majority we know each other. They certainly, I think you met me now, you won't forget me, I hope.
No, definitely not.
And then we have to develop that. And then we have to say, well, okay, Jamie, I'm going to say to you, are you going to lead this through Headingley and the Rhinos? What are you going to do? Because some of our teams would love to come down here, would love to come down here. I know that for a fact. So I will now go back to my lot, and they'll probably see some of this podcast and say, can we do it, Linda, through whichever specialty happens to work? And of course we will. I'd like to get them in front of this mic, some of them, and explains what they do. Are you going to take me up on that, Jamie?
Absolutely. Always welcome. And I love the idea that you're talking about there. Again, if I understand it right, good leaders create leaders, and sometimes you take a step back and let other people lead in what they're good at.
Totally.
And I thank you for your endorsement as well, because there was a lady called Sonia Kumar at the University of Leeds. She had a roundtable last year. There was some medical practitioners and lecturers from Pretoria University that come over, and I had a chat with one of them, and I was talking about sometimes people speak a different language, and he said, well, look, I'm a GP in South Africa, and when I ask people to wash their hands in my community, he said about a third of them might listen, but if I get the local priest to do it, a lot of them listen then, because the difference in voice and who says what, where, in what context can often be king. I think yours carries a lot of weight, certainly more than mine will at this minute, so thanks for that. I guess the last bit that I can look inwardly at myself is, I guess I'm a living, breathing example of what the Leeds Rhinos Foundation seeks to achieve when you talk about certainly demographics, colour of my skin, the type of town, part of town that I was born in, and the opportunities that sport has given me through the Leeds Rhinos to fulfil my potential and escape some of the metrics here that I want to finish with, and it's around inequalities. And there's a metric there around those who are maybe born in places like Harewood are on average likely to live 12 years longer than somebody born in, say, Hunslet. And I grew up in a town that's more reminiscent of Hunslet. So I guess the last bit then is certainly my job, with that debt of gratitude, to pay forward what I've been given. But all of us can collaborate and come together to hopefully, tackle some of those inequalities. How do we do that? What's the best approach?
The one thing we've got to remember, wearing my hat and why I'm here, is that we do not want people in hospital.
Yes.
So anything that we can do to stop that, to help people to live better lives through healthier lives, has to be through other agencies as well, or partnerships with other agencies. Coming back to the 10-year plan, it's well written in the 10-year plan. It's a bit boring as a 10-year plan to everybody, but for me, it's life and blood. That's what we should look at. If we said across Leeds, that's what we're going to concentrate on, which I think we will, and we are doing already, actually, but really concentrate on it, then we all have a role to play. I don't come from even a middle-class family, but deprivation was having good food on the table because two parents worked very hard, and grandmother lived with us generational to look after me. You work for it. We're up for that, aren't we? We're prepared. You're prepared, I can tell, to get your sleeves rolled up. I ask other people regularly, will you join me? Will you get your sleeves rolled up? Because we have to give people opportunity. And if they're ill, their opportunities diminish. That isn't right. That is not right from whatever background you're in. Just because you may be privileged and born into a family that's middle class or even more so, is not right for society. Everybody has something to give. Everybody. You are born a survivor or a victim. We don't do victims in Leeds. We've got to help those people come through it. So let's help them. Let's just get behind it, whether it's your pitch or please not through A&E. Can we just get a grip of that so that we can help people not come through those doors? But if they need help, of course the door's open. Of course it is. That's what we're here to help you with. But it might not just be the illness you've walked through the door with. And it might be you need more education, back to the academy again. Let's direct people to where we think we know what you need, and you might need a new home. Well, back to the local authority. We've got social care working in our hospitals. It doesn't have to be young people. This can be older people that need more care. How do we do it? How do we do that? Keep them out of hospital. You do not want to be in hospital. Don't be frightened of it, because we're there to help you, but it is not the right place for you to become well. And it might be that your illness is created by something that's external. And so ill health can be a multitudinous things. And so every agency has a responsibility for that. And that's back to Team Leeds.
Love it. We've all got one job, Team Leeds. Different roles to play within that. And I have loved this time together. I reckon there's maybe 2 or 3 different podcasts there in culture, leadership, communication, you name it. Love is a verb though, isn't it? It's about what we do, and you use the analogy there, roll your sleeves up. I've taken a lot of your time, we've done a lot of talking. I think you'd encourage me to get my sleeves rolled up and get on with the rest of my day. But thank you very much for your time. It's been very educational and motivational for me as well.
Jamie, I've really enjoyed it. I've loved this conversation. I reckon we've got a partnership going here.
Yes, started. You heard it here. Thanks for joining us in Box 2. See you next time.